Maria, this is such an exciting time. 10 years?
10.
How are you feeling?
I feel like it went by too fast, while at the same time it was slow, like it's mixed feelings.
Yeah.
I'm excited, I'm anxious for the next 10 years. And I feel so grateful for everyone who's worked with us along the way. So it's a couple of mixed feelings.
No, I can imagine. I mean, take us back to even before the 10 years, when you were thinking about starting this. You know, what was going through your mind?
I didn't set out to start a foundation initially. Action Foundation was born in 2009 out of my experience volunteering with children with disabilities and their families with the Special Olympics Kenya. I was a student at KU and I had this chance to volunteer. And seeing the kids and their parents and getting to know the realities of their lives got me thinking that I could do so much more. So we started out as a volunteer movement, reaching out to kids in their schools, in their homes, in their communities. So it was like a hobby, you know, something we do with my colleagues in campus. So I absolutely didn't set out to start a foundation. That I didn't know 10 years later here we would be here. So it's all surreal.
I mean, when you're talking about special needs kids,
Yes.
already that's a difficult job. But it's even more compounded when you think about for parents who live in informal settlements. You know, what kind of challenges do they face?
So children with disabilities in informal settlements, right now we work in Kibera, Mathare, Kawangware and Mukuru. They face unique challenges by virtue of having a disability and living in an informal settlement. There are challenges of access to education, access to health services, sanitation, poor housing, and quite unfortunately we've had instances where there are slum fires, and some of our kids, we've had cases where they've perished as a result. So there are challenges of the environment and then also stigma within the community. And living in a slum and you're ashamed of your child, for example, because you don't have that support, you don't have a decent place to keep them.
I mean, now as we speak, you support 700 children. I mean, that number already in my mind. But what kind of support, what kind of services do you give?
So we work in 3 major programmatic areas, in health and well-being, where we support children with disabilities to get access to therapy services, nutrition, as well as work with their parents to give them ways in which they can care for their kids. Our second program area is in education, inclusive education, where we work to support children to access quality and inclusive education right from the early years to the highest level possible. We have 26 partner schools at the moment, spread throughout 3 informal settlements, and we work with school leaders, teachers, so that they can have the skills to work with learners who have a disability. Finally, we have a project in women and girl empowerment, and which was stemmed out of seeing the unique challenges that women and girls with disabilities experience in their communities, in accessing healthcare, accessing sexual and reproductive health information, the issues of intimate partner violence. So seeing those challenges, and when our young kids turned 13, 14 and got into that stage where the puberty, we found them to be very high risk. So we set up the Women and Girl Empowerment Program to tackle these issues.
Let's talk about some of the success stories. I know you're proud of all of them.
Yeah.
But just some that, you know, would stick out to you.
Well, it's hard to pick. Here where we are at the Action Foundation Hub. Believe it or not, this space was previously a dump site. It was a written-off area. People used to just throw all sorts of weird things in here. So when we wanted to build our facility, which was inspired by our parents and having the urge and the desire to have our own place, finding a piece of property to build on was very difficult. So when we found this spot, it was a dump, but what we could see was the view beyond the hill. We have a very beautiful view. It's a nice, calm and peaceful place. So we worked with the community to build this space from scratch. We had Mama Mbogas volunteer to give us chota for us, collect for us water. We had hardware shops give us donations in kind. So it was a community effort, and our families actually had harambes, so that's because we really wanted to have this space. So our hub is one of our biggest success stories. And our kids gaining their milestones, getting to walk, to talk, to interact with their peers, seeing that always gets me going. And for our Women and Girl Empowerment Program, seeing a girl who was previously having low self-esteem, didn't have support, now emerging and becoming a strong leader in their community really gets us going. So there are tons and tons of success stories. But the one I'm most proud of is the community that we've been able to build. Our founder community, our community here in Bombolulu, Kibera, my team, they're amazing. So I'm very proud of what we've created.
You know, we were talking about this a bit earlier, how you can be so into your work. You lift your head up and 10 years has passed, you know. Did you see the Action Foundation being what it is now?
Wow. I not know. I as I said, I didn't start a foundation. It kind of took a life of its own. And when you solve one challenge, you think you're done and you can maybe move on to other things. Then you see even more gaps and more challenges to solve. So I didn't see us reaching more than 700 kids, more than 120 mentor and mentees. But yeah, it's quite surreal. But definitely the Action Foundation has become one of the leading organizations, grassroots movements working with people with disabilities, and we couldn't have done it without amazing support across the board.
I'm sure as time has gone, the different people you've interacted with, you've learned some things about yourself too. You know, what are some personal lessons?
So I've learned that I'm quite adaptable and resilient, and I am widely optimistic. Adaptable because through the 10 years you've gone through difficult moments, happy moments, but one of the things that sticks out right now is not so long ago we were having a really difficult time in terms of fundraising. It was during the post-election violence, and we had 500 Kenya shillings in our account. Yet I have a team of 4, I have families to provide for, I have a community that depends on me. And right about that time I had to travel to the States for a conference. So what I did was I put together our merchandise. Our parents make different items, bags, toys, and the likes. And my suitcase was half full of those stuff and the rest of my clothes. And when I got to the conference, I literally hawked those things, and I had enough money to pay my staff for 3 months after that. So I've learned that I'm quite adaptable and I'm quite resilient, and I'm widely optimistic. And I always dream of a better tomorrow. I always think that tomorrow will be better, and and I don't take no for an answer. And I believe that all of us can create a better world, not just for ourselves, but for everyone around us. So I've learned that I'm incredibly resilient and adaptable.
No, I mean, and I know you're inspiring many young women out there who thought, okay, if Maria was able to do this from an idea, you know, why can't I? When we're talking about a season like this, the pandemic, it's been difficult for everyone. You know, what other unique challenges did you face as an organization trying to reach out to the community?
So the pandemic hit at a very interesting time. I was just about to start my maternity leave. I think when I went to have my baby, that's when the pandemic struck. So I had to pick myself up 2 weeks into delivering my baby and lead not just my community, but see how we can provide for our beneficiaries. Which was quite challenging because a lot of our beneficiaries lost their jobs. Our schools were shut. We also work with teachers, and unfortunately a lot of them had to be sent home. Until now they haven't received their salaries. So we had to see how to pivot. We moved a lot of our teacher trainings online, and we moved into aid, we wore that hat of aid workers, where we did a couple of fundraising, reached out to our partners, and were able to get donations out to our families right at their homes. We moved from having therapy here to our facility to providing home-based therapy. So we had to change a lot. And resources was actually a significant issue because a lot of our families, like the women who we train in Street Business School, they lost their businesses. They had no livelihoods. So be there for them even psychologically. And we started our counseling program, where we have counseling services open for all our community members. So we had to act fast. For me, you can imagine 2 weeks, you have a small baby and you have to really go pull up your sleeves and get back on the grind. It was challenging emotionally, but I'm happy that we didn't leave our beneficiaries out in the cold, and we were able to step up and be strong for them.
Wow.
Yeah.
And even as you're looking at the next 10, 15 years of the Action Foundation, what do you want to achieve? What else do you want to do?
I see Action Foundation not only working in Kenya, but in multiple countries in Africa. We are already looking at potential partners for our inclusive education programming across East Africa. We have a mobile app that we developed with our teachers, and it has tons of resources, inclusive storybooks, and a couple of other resources to support inclusive education right from the early years. So you want to see our app being used all over the world, not just in Kenya. So that's an immediate way we can scale. But for our other program areas, our health and well-being project, and our women and girl empowerment, we are looking for strategic partners who can help us implement our programming throughout Kenya, but long-term throughout the continent, starting with East Africa, because East Africa is one small country. So we hope to scale in other areas.
And for someone who's watching this, they are inspired to start something in their community, what would you tell them? What does this kind of work require?
Wow. Yeah, so I have a disclaimer, don't try this at home. Running a non-profit is not for the faint-hearted, unless one of the things that I always tell our team at the Action Foundation is we should never forget why we do what we do, and we should never lose sight of the bigger picture. And our bigger picture is an inclusive Kenya, an inclusive Africa, an inclusive world where children and young people with disabilities can realize their maximum potential. So for people who are looking to start out, just know that, brace yourself for the ride. Stay true to yourself. Never forget why you are doing what you're doing. Keep true to your passion, and surround yourself with people who speak to your heart, speak to your soul. Because for me, the things that have helped Action Foundation get to where we are today is an amazing family, an amazing support system. Hats off to my husband, my mom and dad. So stick to people who speak to your soul and your heart, and stay true to your values, stay true to your mission. Because someone can come and tell you, why don't you maybe change your program to now work with a whole different set of people. But remember why you do what you do, and stay true to your passion, stay true to your cause.
So important to stay committed to that one thing, and that gifting as well. Thank you so much, Maria. Anything else you want to add?
So I'd like to add that for everyone who's watching this, particularly a parent who has a child with disability, a woman who's living with a disability, a girl who's living with a disability. So I'd like to say that the biggest ingredient for all of us is love. So for parents, let us love our children. For us women and girls, love ourselves. And for teachers and anyone who's working with our communities, let's love our beneficiaries, because without love, nothing is possible. It sounds a bit corny, but fall so madly in love with yourself, fall so madly in love with your people and your child, and that positivity is going to create miracles. Look at us here. This place didn't exist before, but because we were so in love with what we were doing, we were so in love with our kids, and stayed true to our cause. Now we have a 3-story building that is helping hundreds. So keep the love going, and never say die.
Wow. And keep the good work going, Maria.
Thank you.
Really
Jaya.
proud of you. Really proud.